We are recording.
That sounds great. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for working with us on the virtual meeting. This is actually an administrative meeting. Here I see the slide and the title, so I appreciate the staff getting together just to kind of give an update and a response of follow-up of the housing summit that we hosted in 2024. And we have some regular business pieces to take care of here just from county work as well. I am not going to do introductions. Just we don't typically do that in our regular meetings that we have every 25 and 45, 55 minutes. And we have a large group. So want to just give a time for our presentations. Want to really appreciate the work that staff has continued to work on, is prepping up for 2025, 26, and want to go ahead and turn it over to staff for the presentations that are in there. I know we've got some updates just in regards to housing. Want to appreciate, I've got several different emails from folks who just wanted to make sure, because they weren't able to join in this conversation and because we're not having public comment, dialogue, questions, answers, and things like that. But I just wanted to make sure folks knew that I did get some of the emails, suggestions around continued and increased community engagement, some questions around how we meet some of our climate action work, climate goals, continue partnerships with support of housing in that area and others. So just wanted to make sure that people knew that did receive that, and also some ideas around just criteria, and we'll talk about that before we end the meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the conversation over to staff, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Good morning. Thank you, Commissioner Lutchman. We just wanted to quickly remind everybody about the 2023 County Issue 1B Affordable Housing Tax Extension and Revenue Change. Just the ballot language, essentially, that has really driven the work over the last year and will continue to as we're working through the criteria. I don't know if you, Commissioner Lutchman, wouldn't mind walking through the budget process on the next slide that the county commissioners finalized in late 2024.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. And this is, we've had a couple conversations. I'm not going to go through all of the background work that got us to a ballot measure that voters in Boulder County could even have the option to review. But also I want to just state that there are neighboring areas around our region and in our state that do not have a housing tax. Some folks who tried last year in 2024, and we are in a really great spot to have Boulder County voters who are, one, very generous, and two, as attentive in regards to the need of housing, the housing crisis that we're in. And I believe that we're in a really great spot, that folks are just ready to look at what are all the different ways that we can come together. And the affordable and attainable housing tax is one of those pieces. So just specific to the budget, there's a whole lot of items in that budget. It's a process that happens really from prepping in the spring to June through December. And so what we are anticipating, I've heard several different numbers, and I just want to clarify a couple pieces. One, a tax is a varied number that will go up and it will go down. And so the number that we see on here in revenue projection is about 16.7 million. I've been talking about 15 million, and I've heard others out in the community talking about 18 million. I'm going to be conservative consistently. And I also know that we do have, as part of all of the tax funds, and the way that we work in Boulder County government, is we will always have a reserve that is a recommendation by for all of our tax funds. And so I know there's been some question in the public about why would you hold that much money back? And we will continue to hold a percentage of any of our tax funds, because that is fiscal responsible practice and what we are looking at in one of our other strategic priorities around good governance. And so we'll continue to do that. And I think most of our partner agencies follow similar guidelines from in regards to reserves, administrative allocation. All of our government partners, nonprofit partners, institutions, organizations understand that there is a piece of administration. We are trying to focus in all of the different areas that we can about getting funding right to programs, right to people directly. And we also recognize that we have critical staff. We have some really important partners. And so the administration of any funding is whether we use an enterprise group, whether we use staff here in the county, whether we work with partners, there are people that are part of the true administration of any of the funds, whether it's cutting checks or answering phone calls or supporting the outreach to efforts to get the funds out. This is another one of those funds that does require some administration. And so we have some of these numbers are not exact, but they're preparation for, and again, just governing in general on the funding. The Innovation Fund, and there may be a little bit more about that. One of the pieces that I think is super exciting about this funding that's set up for the next 15 years is that we have an opportunity to look at where we may have missed some of the gaps. What are some of the programs that are happening around the country that are really addressing housing in some new ways? What have we not tried here in Boulder County? What we are hearing from different partners. And for us, because we at Boulder County start everything with a policy that we have internally, not just a new policy, but a policy we've been guided by for several years, is policy 1.6. And for us, what that means is that race matters. Race is the indicator of all the outcomes that are connected with all the social determinants of health. And so that's where we start. And so this is another piece that is giving us, and the Board of County Commissioners is really supportive of using that lens for this work as well as all the other work that we're doing. And so we're excited about what that Innovation Fund could bring, and there'll be a separate process for folks. And I've heard some people talking about potential ideas and pilot projects to be innovative in how we address this housing crisis. So you can see the remaining available. And then, of course, just for folks who aren't reading the slides and maybe tuning in on phones and other devices, that looks like about 14.8 million after that. We have housing supportive services allocation at 35% of available revenues at about 5.2. There's development activities allocation. And if you remember, and the slide was up for just a second, that the tax initiative was broken up by development. And I just want to remind folks that development may not be what folks think of initially of entitlements and construction, but it was also addressed and talked about in a lot of the conversation, meetings, suggestions, and in the language about renovation, about rehab. And so there is still an opportunity for folks to be very creative about how they use that allocation of the funds, and the different teams with our cities, counties, and housing authority partners will be thinking about that. But the other one is housing supportive service. And I want to be thinking about with everybody as partners, what is the difference between permanently supportive housing and supportive services and housing supportive services, because I do think that's an opportunity for us to make sure that we're all aligned and clear about. So we'll keep asking each other questions for clarification in the conversations. We had a meeting with the Regional Housing Partnership about a week ago, and it became very clear that there was some just confusion in the way that we are all working in our silos. And so again, this is a really great opportunity for us to continue to do regional work and make sure that we're using the same definitions. So after that is what we heard was a really strong proposal initially in allocations for cities, for towns, for specific groups. And as the board reviewed all of those different proposals and recommendations, that turned to a Boulder County 38% population-based fund distribution between these three jurisdictions. So Boulder County is one, City of Boulder at 32%, and City of Longmont at 30%. And so that percentage won't change. The number might, again, because of the variation on taxes. So that is the quickest update in regards to budget. And I know folks have seen it in different places. It is on the website, bouldercounty.gov, in regards to the funding, and we'll continue to be sharing out information as we let folks know how the money, as we continue in the next 15 years, how that moves along. The board also made a decision to keep this formula in place for the first 3 years, because we heard very loud and clear that the recipients of any percentage of funds really wanted that reliability and just to be able to know what to expect from any allocation. Thanks, Susanna.
Thank you, Commissioner. And then I think on the next slide, we wanted to just talk through the way that staff is viewing what the criteria will look like as we're developing is AAHT goals in two areas. One, developing new units. So thank you for addressing that. That can be, rehab projects and acquisition, and land banking can be even included in that. And so that is the one goal that around developing new units. And we want our cities to get creative. We want our towns to be able to, plug in numbers, especially with the first year, with criteria kind of just now coming out. So it sounds like what we're hearing is that there are definitely enough projects, and I'm really excited. In a few minutes, we'll hear from some of our nonprofit developers on some of that, just this topic, developing new units. I don't know if there's anything you want to give us any feedback on, Commissioner, around this development goal.
Well, I think you just added into that piece too, and always happy to hear from folks. But I think one of the other questions that has come up is about who's going to be part of that conversation. And we heard several different options, as you know, and I'm feeling really positive around the group of city managers, town managers, and county manager who will be really looking, because they are so steeped in what is happening with their jurisdictions, that will be very helpful to have better understanding of what projects are already being considered, that are being thought about, and each city and town has an idea of where their land banking, as you mentioned, that possibility might be, and what conversations that they're having. So I think that's going to get, from a regional perspective, give a really important opportunity for those folks to be guiding some of that work. And I also want to just clarify that the Housing Authority for Boulder County, because again, this is a regional tax. And so we are hearing, and we continue to be, and I know, our housing team and BCHA has made additional commitments for 25 and 26 to be out sharing this information with city and town councils, to also be meeting with and sharing specifically to folks who are wanting to hear more about what BCHA as one of the jurisdictions is going to be working on. But we won't be going out to different BCHA. BCHA won't be going out and dictating where any projects or development will be going, the same way in the past that we have heard from and gotten ideas from different people, and that's where the conversations will start. So I just wanted to clarify that piece too, because that was one of the items that came in on a question.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you. I love the way you framed that. I've been using that same language when I'm meeting with the towns now, because that's exactly the shift that you'll see in BCHA. And I'll talk more about that during BCHA's updates today. So I'll get into
Thank
that.
you.
The next slide is just preserving existing units, which we've already talked about. And I think this becomes really important with right of first refusal for the municipalities who might be able to engage in housing in new ways. So we're talking with those jurisdictions, trying to understand like some of the things that they might be looking for. As we know, different properties come up for sale, and if we haven't been a part of those projects, it might be difficult to engage initially. So we're working on some best practices for the towns to understand like how do we this is a great time for municipalities to lean on their housing authorities, because in our world, this happens pretty frequently, and I know it might be new for others, but there's some definite things to look out for whenever we think about preserving existing units. So that's sort of where we're focused, but not sure if you wanted to add anything here.
I don't have any more additions. I think what you said is that, and again, the city and the town are going to have a better idea of what opportunities might be in their areas for any type of rehab, renovation, like you said, acquisition.
Perfect. And then the next slide is on the other side of the goal, or AAHT, is the supportive services slide. And so we wanted today to kind of just update you on some of the supportive services work that we're doing in the county. and highlight our mission. With the $5.2 million, we've gotten a lot of questions like what's going to happen with those funds. And so Gwen Mossman and her team have been doing a really great job of starting to work on hiring additional staff. That's one of our things that, we're committed to, increasing our services, expanding, but at a pace that is doable for our teams as well. So Gwen is already started on that. She's already in the hiring process for some key positions. But Gwen or Commissioner, I don't know if you have anything to add, but I'll invite Gwen to present on the next couple of slides.
No, I'm gonna let Gwen go, and then I might have some questions depending on what is presented. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Gwen Mossman, and I manage Boulder County's Supportive Housing Division. So a little bit of background. Contrary to popular belief, most households that we work with are employed. Reasons for housing instability most often include a change in the family structure due to divorce or domestic violence, illness or injury that prevents a primary earner from working temporarily, being forced to relocate but lacking funds for deposit and other move-in costs, and lease-up barriers such as previous evictions, poor credit, or criminal history. The Supportive Housing Division, along with our networks of community partners, we step in to connect households to emergency financial assistance and community resources to keep them safely housed during acute periods of crisis. We align our programming around the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness Homeless Prevention Framework. There's a lot of homeless in one sentence there, which identifies 4 categories of homeless prevention: universal supports, prevention, diversion, and rehousing and stabilization. So the focus of universal supports is on resource coordination and referrals to programs and community benefits that enhance resident well-being. In the Supportive Housing Division, we do this through our Housing Stabilization Program, the Housing Helpline, our Resident Services team, as well as our Supportive Case Management team. The focus of prevention is to promote stability by increasing affordable and deeply affordable housing in our community. The Supportive Housing Division participates in the Regional Housing Partnership and other community affordable housing forums. We serve as co-chair to the Family Homelessness Subcommittee and support their work in identifying housing exits. And we've also expanded resources to support households in maintaining their vouchers, which is the primary source of deeply affordable housing in our community. Diversion is the core of our mission. We help avoid homelessness with timely financial assistance and case management. Once again, through our housing stabilization, resident services, and housing helpline programs. In fact, in 2024, $2.9 million in case managed rental assistance was distributed throughout the county through our network of community partners, which include family resource centers, domestic violence agencies, St. Vrain and Boulder Valley school districts, and most recently, El Clemente. We also work closely with our internal programs such as Family and Child Services and Colorado Works to provide housing supports to their participants as well. So, and then the last category, rehousing and stabilization. So when a household does lose housing for even a brief period, there can be long-term impacts to the household, especially the children. We quickly attempt to move households into housing and promote stability through several programs, including Family Bridge Housing, which distributed $150,000 in emergency hoteling vouchers in 2024. Our COC Rapid Rehousing, Family Unification, and Next Steps Homeless Prevention programs provide housing navigation, rental assistance, and high acuity in-home supportive case management for up to 2 years to also, these are all supports that are needed when a family gets to the point of losing their housing to bring them back to stability. As I mentioned under the prevention section, vouchers are one of the primary sources of deeply affordable housing in our community. So this year we've expanded services and financial supports dedicated to helping voucher holders maintain this valuable housing resource. Excuse me, I stumbled there. The importance of this work was emphasized last year when our resident services team noted that 50% of the mixed-age households that they worked with held vouchers from one of the 5 voucher agencies in Boulder County. We know that when a household loses a voucher, they often return to the system in a way that we don't have the resources to support. So our goal is that a voucher holder doesn't lose this resource due to financial or paperwork concerns, and through the provision of timely financial assistance and light touch case management. And so our housing helpline will serve as the primary conduit to those new services, but our resident services team will also be maintaining their focus on on voucher holders. So I appreciate everyone's time, and if you have questions about our supportive housing programs, I really encourage you to reach out to me at any time. I think my contact information is on the slide, but gmossman@bouldercounty.org.
Thanks, Gwen.
Yeah.
Thanks for the update. Commissioner, do you have any questions for Gwen?
I just wondered, thanks, Gwen, on one of the questions that's been part of the conversation and also an email here in regards to the rental assistance, and wanted to know the $2.9 million that you mentioned in there. What is the estimated amount for 25 of rental assistance? And I see in there the leveraging, so you may not know, depending on if there's other requests out there or leveraging happening, but just wondered if you have an estimate number. And if you don't have it on hand, it's okay. I just wanted to ask.
The amount that we have available to us remains about the same. I think we have maybe closer to 3.1 million that should come in. So it's
For
not
2025.
For 2025. So
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I just want to note too, Gwen, that I know the focus is really keeping our voucher holders with their vouchers in hand. And I just want to note that Gwen's team works really closely with the other housing authorities and some of the meetings that she talked about, Commissioner. But BCHA, for example, is always pursuing specialty vouchers, and we were awarded 10 new VASH vouchers this year. So that's really exciting for our program anytime we can increase our vouchers.
Yeah, thank you. And I do want to just address a piece. Because 2025, we're going to be looking here in the future. We know that because of federal funding and just some of the pieces that have been happening over the last few weeks, that did create a lot of stress on not just our staff and the programs, but also for our residents in regards to what funding might be available or not. So I want to name that because that is part of what we are working on when we look at all of these different pieces here of the funding that's coming in. Some of it's grants, some of it's federally funded, et cetera. And so I just, folks who know me and who've worked with me, like, I also want to be very clear, and I heard somebody ask about transparency too. And so I just want to state that we are setting ourselves up as well as we can. And we also acknowledge that there could be other changes that will really impact all of these different pieces.
Thank you. All right, we can shift to the next slide, which is largely about implementation and sort of what we've done to this point as we're working on building the criteria, Commissioner, and then sort of what our next steps are. So housing staff and I have been meeting with the jurisdictions that Boulder County represents. And so we've been doing interviews with meetings with those staffs, city managers, town administrators. So we're just gathering feedback, and we're able to kind of chart out what some of the funding needs are in the communities that we represent. Right now, just on our very rough estimate of charting, it's over $7 million in potential projects. And so, as you know, we have 3.6 for Boulder County's side. So the need is there, the projects are there, the ideas are there. Our next step is to go back to that group and kind of present to them the full information that we've received, talk through what can be pushed off to 2026. Those kinds of things. So we're working on that. For the larger town, or for Boulder and Longmont, our next steps are to meet with them to really understand what their goals are in 2025 and work on the intergovernmental agreements that will be in place for us to distribute those funds. Our goal is to really get funding out the door very, very beginning of second quarter. Our criteria should come out in March, so we're working fast and furious right now. The Innovation Fund will also be a part of that, but a separate process. It will be the only process that there's an official application. And so we're working through that process right now. And I know one of the important things that you've asked us to do is to find a way for people to give us some feedback. So I'm excited that this will be a live link and we'll send it out after this meeting, very large and wide. Working with your communications team, but we actually do have a feedback link where people can provide us feedback, general public, our partners, and it'll be a way for us to use that as we're working through the criteria process over the next 5 weeks.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Any questions for us?
The question I had was just on the criteria piece. So thank you for hearing that and for putting together that link. And so we can talk with our communications team just in regards to when we get to the next steps. That's one I've got written down here. So thank you.
Sure thing. And so the next phase that we wanted to bring to you today was we really want to highlight our affordable housing developers in our community. So we're really excited to welcome all 3 of the housing authorities in Boulder County. So we'll each do a quick 3 to 5 minute presentation. And then we are also happy that both of our habitats are here, as well as Thistle. So you'll be able to hear from our nonprofit development partners. And I think Boulder Housing Partners is up first.
All right, thanks, Susanna. Yes, I'm just going to walk you through what we have in our pipeline, both that we're currently under construction on or having just completed construction, and then what we have lined up for the future. As you'll be able to see, the opportunity in Boulder is enormous, and the need for funding to close these gaps is also enormous. So I don't know, Bill or whoever's driving the slides, we are ready for the next one. Awesome. So Hilltop Senior Living, you see some photos here. This is a 60-unit senior development with 15 units of permanently supportive housing. The building is completed and we began moving people in. That number 10 is probably a little low at this point. I think we moved a few more people in the last couple of days. Leasing is going well, and we're really happy with this property, especially being able to provide the 15 units for folks that are exiting or experiencing homelessness. Next one, please. All right, Raleigh Flats is another one that is currently under construction. This is one that we expect to be probably completed actually later this month, with the process to get the final approvals from the city taking about another month thereafter. But this is the 100 units of family housing located on 29th Street and Bluff here in Boulder. 10 units are permanently supportive housing. And so we're excited to be able to continue to mix that into our developments wherever possible. We're excited, particularly with this one, that we're able to provide affordability that's significantly deeper across the board than the 60% AMI. So something we try to focus on is not just counting affordable housing units, but looking at the actual rent burden relief that we're providing by providing the deepest levels of affordability possible whenever we can. All right, next slide, please. All right, and it's a busy first part of the year for us. So we also have Hawthorne Court, which is also under construction. This is 73 units of family housing. It's located directly adjacent to one of our other properties, our Diagonal Court property. And this is part of the Diagonal Plaza redevelopment for those of you who've been monitoring that. in the city. And it's a wonderful thing for us because not only are we able to provide 73 more units of deeply affordable housing, including 5 units for families at risk of experiencing homelessness, but we're also able to turn a tremendously blighted parking lot that's directly adjacent to one of our communities into a beautiful new housing, get a park built, and create a campus for those communities to operate together. The residents of the Hawthorne Court development will be able to use the Diagonal Court community room and vice versa. And so there's going to be a lot of great synergy there. All right, next slide, please. All right, and so then also rewinding just a little bit, on January 1st, so about a month ago, BHP took over the ownership and management of Golden West, which is a senior building in Boulder near the University of Colorado campus. Currently, there's 253 units of affordable housing in there. We are taking 56 unoccupied studio units and converting them into 31 units, which will serve older adults. We'll be building a mix of 1-bedroom and 2 bedrooms. We've already received, thank you to the county, $450,000 of Boulder County Worthy Cause funds for this effort. And this is something that we are hoping to start construction on this spring. So when you add it all up, between the Golden West acquisition, the new Golden West units, and then the other 3 properties that we either have just completed or will be completing between now and June, which is when Hawthorne will complete. We're over 500 units that we're expecting to be bringing into our operation in this 6-month period that we are partway through, which equates to about a 33% growth for BHP as an organization. So we are busy. We definitely have our hands full, but we're really happy. There's a lot of really good work happening and going to provide a really great impact to a number of folks in Boulder and beyond.
Thank you. Can I ask a quick question? Is that the end of your?
Oh,
not quite.
I guess I got one more slide. Yeah.
Yep, I'll wait till you're done.
Go for it. Yeah. All right. So then we also have, I think we've actually got 2 more slides, but I'll go quick because I know I'm probably going over time here. So with our entitled pipeline projects, we have these 3 projects that you see listed here where we have already completed the entitlements. And so those ones are sort of loaded and ready to go once we're able to obtain funding. And, funding here is going to look like tax credits. It's going to look like, funding commitment from the city of Boulder, as well as the new Boulder County affordable housing tax dollars as well. So these are ready to go. And these are all projects that we're really excited about that we think we can bring really deep affordability to. And then we've got a few more things on the next slide that are longer term. So when we've got these 3 properties that are land banked, and we will next bring those through the entitlement process so that they're ready to go. And this is just the way we're going to try to approach things, is try to keep at any given time around 3 that are ready to launch once we get them funded, and then around 3 that are in the longer term land bank. So all in all, we have about 233 units that are either under construction or just completed within the last month, and then another 750 to 800 units that are in the longer term pipeline. All right, I think that's it.
Thanks for that. And I'll try to be brief as well, because I know we've got some other presenters. Jeremy, appreciate you presenting. I have a couple questions, and some of it might just be to discuss, and we'll have some next steps. But I'm curious about, I heard you talking about permanently supportive housing. What I heard and saw in the presentation was maybe a set percent for each development. So I'm curious about how you all are making that decision. Some of our cities and towns in the region and housing authorities don't have their own tax. They don't have their own funding mechanisms. And I saw City of Boulder has something, but I'm also wondering about who's doing those services. I've met with some of our partners with Element Properties and others who are supporting. And I don't know if it's the same definition of permanently supportive housing. I've heard some pretty big numbers, like $200,000 per unit for a decent amount of time, but just curious who's doing the services and how you're choosing your permanently supportive housing percent or number per project.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll try to answer briefly. There's actually kind of a lot here, so we might want to take this offline or at a future meeting. So it depends on the project, but we have, Boulder Shelter, All Roads, formerly Boulder Shelter for the Homeless, supports over 200 of BHP's current residents, and they will certainly be involved with a number of the ones that we're bringing online as part of this integrated permanently supportive housing. BHP is also providing services in-house to the extent that we are able to afford it. Oftentimes, what that means is that there's a spectrum of folks who are experiencing homelessness, and there's a level of acuity of need as you move up and down the spectrum from highest acuity of need to lower acuity of need. When we don't have a robust services budget, so for example, at our Hilltop property, we only have about $1,000 a unit a year as our services budget in total. That's a property and it's integrated. So that's a property where we're going to be looking for folks who are experiencing homelessness, but perhaps a bit lower on the acuity of need spectrum. Properties like our Lee Hill property, where we're able to have 24/7 staff on site, and we're spending more like $8,000 to $10,000 a year in supportive services. That's where we're going to try to work with folks who are higher acuity of need. So it's a mix of partner agencies providing those services, BHP staff providing those services, and then our best efforts to be thoughtful about the populations that we're targeting, because there's a tremendous need all across the spectrum. And so that's something that we're trying to do. In terms of how these decisions get made, we're committed to trying to, where we can, house folks with the greatest need. And so it helps us to be able to allocate a number of units at each property whenever we're able to. And so that's something that we have done and are likely to continue to do in these approximate ratios of 10 to 25% of the property tends to be what works pretty well.
That's helpful. And the PSH definition is, to me, I'm hearing that again. There is a difference of each, even in the examples that you gave. So that'll be helpful for us in continued conversation, because it does not mean the same thing even from BHP's project to project.
Yes.
So that's helpful. Okay. Thank you so much.
Good observation.
Yep. Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate it. So exciting. Your work is beautiful, and really excited to shift
Likewise.
to. Thank you. Molly, you're up for City of Longmont.
Sure. So I'm just going to get started kind of going over some of the city side and the housing authority side, since we are under one roof, some of our development progress. And just want to always mention that this is just those two organizations, but we've got a ton of other organizations working in our city, either for-profit developers or our nonprofit partners. So in 2024, we completed a lot for, Longmont, especially the housing authority, being kind of a Phoenix Rising organization is what we say, after the city coming in 2020 and really helping Longmont Housing Authority get everything really squared away and ready to take off for the future. So we worked with MGL partners to do a joint development called Chrisman 2. This opened in June. It's fully leased up. This is 83 multifamily units, and this is an income averaging project through the tax credit program. So this has some 30% units all the way up to 80% units. It's located up in the north side of Longmont. Go ahead and switch, Bill. Zinnia is our most recent permanent supportive housing project. This was developed and owned by Element. Longmont Housing Authority is a special limited partner and provides the property management services. All Roads provides the supportive services, and Clinica Family Health, formerly Mental Health Partners, provides the voucher management here. Those are state vouchers. This opened up in October 2024. That's 55 one-bedroom units, all 30% AMI. This is really helping those exiting homelessness. This is a higher acuity of need location, and it is located in the same campus is what it's ending up looking like as our Suites supportive housing, which is 82 units. So while we're talking about supportive housing, on Longmont side, we don't yet have a scattered sites PSH program. There is some interest in All Roads coming in and doing that in our community. But then really what we have done, because supportive services for those exiting homelessness has been such a tough funding source to find. The city and the Housing Authority have kind of gone around the system and found ways to fund that ourselves. That is not the ideal way to do this. We would rather leverage that, but the need was so great, and the benefits are showing so well at the suites that it was so critical. So we fund 3 clinician positions specifically right now serving the suites. One is being hired, and we also have a seniors resource specialist that serves all LHA properties, that helps those that are over the age of 62. Go ahead and go along. We also worked on preservation. We always have a preservation pipeline going at the same time. So we completed the Village on Main rehab and resyndication of tax credits. So that is just completed in November. It's right downtown. It's 72 units for seniors. And they needed a big infusion of project-based vouchers to also maintain this as affordable housing into the future. Our construction pipeline for 2025. We started construction in the fall on the Ascent at Hover Crossing. This is 75 multifamily units. It's a really unique development because we were really targeting as many 3 and 4 bedrooms as is possible to finance, which are really difficult to finance in a traditional LIHTC model. But we knew that we were having trouble with households in our community with larger size families or multi-generational households struggling to find larger size units. So that took a ton of investment from the city and the LHA, but we brought it together, and there will be an on-site early childhood education center serving Head Start and CCAP families only. This is a development partnership between LHA and Penrose, and it'll be in construction throughout the year with opening in January 2026. True North is on the city side of things, but it's so significant, I want to make sure we included it here. It's a new neighborhood in just south of Costco. It's under construction in the first phase. In total, it'll be 185 deed restricted homeownership units. 55 of those will be permanently affordable for those under 80% AMI, and 130 of them will be in that middle income range with a unique deed restriction that balances city investment, helping as many people as possible, with being able to build some generational wealth and enter the market eventually. That's up to 120% AMI. This was also a partnership project. That's kind of our MO around here. And it took a ton of city investment, including landowner investment to get the land in at sub-market rates, fee waivers, which we built a program around for middle income, and a whole effort. So we have our first homes expected to close in August. And finally, our preservation project underway will now be preserving 100 units of senior housing that are currently in the HUD 202 program. We're going to do a RAD conversion because the HUD budgeting process really limits what we can do with the property, and we'd really like to be able to put more into it and increase services and everything that we can there. I will say, I don't have a slide for this, but just for our future pipeline, for the size of our organization, this was a huge accomplishment in 24 and what we have in 25. So right now we've got land banked. We've got enough for about 200 units of land banked. And now we're through 2025 going to decide like what is our first direction? Which one do we want to start hitting first? So that's it for me. I wanted to keep it short and sweet for you as much as I could. Bill, I did not keep it to 3 minutes.
Thanks,
I apologize.
Molly.
Thanks,
Commissioner,
Molly.
questions?
Yeah, thank you, Susanna. I appreciate that. And the questions that I had, that were on the slide, you talked about them in regards to, thanks for sharing the home ownership piece. And also I agree the project that you're working on just from a city perspective is important just for folks to have an idea. I continue to hear questions around workforce housing, and I saw some of that kind of piece of the attainable kind of other, what people also describe as middle income housing, et cetera. And I saw some of that in there. So I think, again, regionally, it's really helpful to have these conversations together. And you also touched on All Roads as your partner of who's providing services for the permanent supportive housing in the project that you talked about at Zinnia. So I really appreciate that. I don't have additional questions.
I did want to mention, because we were talking on the services piece, that we do not have case management and clinical services for LHA voucher holders. That's something we wanted to do for a long time. And right now there is no federal, state, or local funding source that gives us access to that. So that is something that we have an idea for, but we need supports on the funding side.
For supportive housing services versus permanently supportive housing.
Correct.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Molly. I'm going to just quickly walk you through BCHA. Commissioner, I know you're very familiar, so this will be just for people on the call, but I'll be quick. So next slide, please, Bill. Just really quickly over our 2024 highlights, BCHA is in the middle of a disposition process right now. And in 24, we disposed of 6 properties, scattered site properties, aging, and that's really to strengthen our portfolio, pay down our bonds that we have coming due anyway. So we also did rehab projects totaling over $2.1 million last year, 7 properties in Nederland, Lafayette, Lyons, Niwot, and Lafayette. So as you know, we have 700 square miles that we cover at BCHA. And so all these small projects throughout it's just really important for us to keep our portfolio up. Another big highlight was Casa de la Esperanza. We had our 30-year celebration and coincidentally received our diminished needs waiver at the same time. So excited about that, really able to highlight some of the incredible work that's happened over the last 20, 30 years at that property. So exciting stuff there. And then we were able to purchase the Seward Mobile Home Park in Lyons, and that was in partnership with Boulder County. So those are just some of the big things that happened in 2024. And the biggest thing, next slide, was obviously Willoughby Corner. So Willoughby Corner, as you know, 192 units. 192 units. We were completed in December, on December 31st. So really exciting stuff for us. It was essentially about 14 months of construction. Let's see, we are in the middle of our leasing process now. So we have 2 buildings that are fully leased. Our senior building is really, really close. And, our Blue Stem property has just started leasing. So, but a total in the pre-leasing world, we're at 118 units leased or pre-leased or applications in process, which is a huge lift for our team to do in just a few weeks. So really excited about the progress that we have at Willoughby Corner. This project is this is phase 1. As you know, phase 2 and 3 are coming, but it included over $14 million in public infrastructure that supports the entire project. So phases 2 and 3 included. So we're excited the next 2 phases should go a lot smoother, but then public infrastructure was a really big lift for the housing authorities. I mean, there's roundabouts and stoplights and so many things included in that. So next slide. And I just wanted to put on there, on the next slide, there's some information about how to get leased if anybody is interested in leasing. So there's that information there. And then finally, our BCHA goals for 2025 and sort of what's on deck for us. Leasing continues. In the spring, we'll open our last building, multifamily building, which is 51 units. We currently have an RFP open for a development partner to move Willoughby Corners phases 2 and 3 forward. That will be an additional 208 units. 75 will be affordable home ownership we are anticipating. So we're really excited to continue to move that project forward. As you know, with the purchase of Seward Mobile Home Park, there will be redevelopment needed on that site. So we're going to start that entitlement work with the City of Lyons this year. At Kestrel, we're also going through an entitlement process to rezone some vacant lots there for home ownership, which is really exciting. And then, of course, we have some special limited partnerships in Gun Barrel and Superior that we're working on. And then finally, we have about $1.7 million in rehab projects throughout the portfolio that we're also working on. So I will take any questions that you have, Commissioner. I know we get to connect more than the others, and that's it for BCHA.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to clarify a couple of pieces because there's different orgs and folks on the call that one of the pieces around the disposition, just in conversation, is not just a cash flow conversation for BCHA, but also the kind of the scattered site and what that means for economies of scale and maintenance. And so if we think about some of the major snowstorms, we've already had one recently, but the year prior, and so the amount of what ends up being contract versus in-house work, et cetera. That was part of that conversation. So I just wanted to add that piece in there. And the other one, and there's a lot of work BCHA is doing, but Casa de la Esperanza and the note there about diminished needs waiver, I just want to provide some clarity that we are also looking at our own sites, over 900 units, and that particular property that has carried a almost 50, but more like 40% vacancy rate because of the type of financing that it's had historically, was really concerning for the BCHA board. And so I just want to acknowledge that and make sure people know that we are also looking at the pieces. In maintenance means a whole lot of different things, but to be able to get that diminished needs waiver, because we also hear about farm working housing, labor housing, workforce housing. We're trying to meet all of these different needs. And so I just wanted to fill in a little bit about that in case folks weren't sure what that meant.
Thank you. All right, and it looks like Flatirons Habitat. Dan.
Well, thanks so much for the time this morning. We're very, very excited. We're privileged to be part of the partnership between the Boulder Valley School District and the City of Boulder. We can move to the next slide. We are currently under construction on the first homes that will come out of the Boulder Mod Factory. That's an artist rendition of what the twin home will look like. Next slide, please. These are 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, 1,153 square foot, net zero, permanently affordable units. The priority for the first homes will go to the Ponderosa Stabilization Project. And then beyond that, we're in, any number of conversations and partnerships throughout the county, throughout our portion of the county, and then some in Broomfield as well. For those who may not know, Habitat serves those families earning 30 to 80% of AMI. We build and finance largely single-family homes. It is our worldwide goal to simply create a world where everyone has a decent place to live. This will dramatically change our capacity to meet that need in Boulder County. Next slide, please. That's just a look at where we are currently with the current factory and homes under construction. I was there yesterday afternoon for a staff meeting, and we've made significant progress beyond what you see already. Next slide, please. We are currently staffing up, and so that's our current staffing. We'll be adding additional station supervisors as we move this first couple of units through, and we've make sure that all of our processes are working in the way that they are designed to work. The goal will be, once we're fully up and running, staffing systems in place would be 25 homes a year, and we'll welcome volunteers into the factory beginning in March.
Thank you.
So I think this is me. This is David Emerson. I'm with Habitat for Humanity St. Vrain Valley. Just have the one slide, and appreciate the opportunity to talk about what we're doing. I wish I had added some prettier pictures. This is a little bit of an eye chart, but what I thought I would do is just give you an overview, one shot of what we're working on now, and give some context because it has been very, very busy. And just explain what you're looking at here. So in green is really represents the projects we have under control. We either own and are building currently, or we have them under a binding contract and are leading the entitlement. And so I wanted to differentiate as well what we are seeing, the role we are playing. So if we step back for a second, we are either the builder or the developer in these projects, and that is an important, I think, context to think about. Ultimately, I think Habitat for Humanity does great work designing homes that fit in to a neighborhood, selecting and preparing families for home ownership, building the homes, and doing the underwriting. Land development is obviously a much bigger deal. It's got pros and cons. We would prefer to stay in the builder role, but by doing so, we would also be seeding our own destiny, if you will, with the number of homes we could build and the timing. It wasn't too long ago in 2022 and 21 where we were waiting on developments to complete their entitlement and infrastructure. So over the past couple of years, we've done a lot more work as the developer, and we've done that before, but more significantly the last couple of years. The other thing I wanted to mention is I put a status there of 12/31/22, which may appear odd, but as I looked at our pipeline, I think it's important to step back and understand that in 2022, we had just passed Prop 123. 1B funding came in 2023. And that in combination with the regional plan, inclusionary housing was resuscitated back in Longmont. The last couple of years, there's been really a sprint in our world to start getting very, very aggressive in securing land, either by partnering with developers or by buying up land. And so out of the 93 homes that are represented in the green, I want to say 21 of those were secured, when we were sitting in December of 22. So we really have stepped out and started to get very, very aggressive. And of course, on the funding side, a lot of those are fully funded or materially funded, but we are putting ourselves out there as the developer to try to get that secured. So Faith Point, for example, is a church property.
Dave,
yeah.
I'm so sorry to cut you off, but I want to make sure we only have 3 minutes left, and I know we still have Thistle on the line. Yep. But happy to follow up with you. And Commissioner, if you have any questions, we will make sure to connect you with Dave and with Dan. But Thistle, Paul, I think you're on the call.
Yes, hi everybody. Paul D'Angelo with Thistle Community Housing, and timer ticking here. So Bill, thanks for driving. Great to see everybody, all the awesome housing partners. Quickly, just to introduce folks who might not know us, Thistle Community Housing, producing, preserving, and protecting quality, permanently affordable rental homes and home ownership opportunities. Next slide, Bill. I do want to pause here quickly on our vision when it comes to developing a pipeline as well as creating economic opportunities and wealth building. Thistle currently, for our 574 rental properties, we report positive rental payments to the credit bureaus, all 3 credit bureaus. So we've done that for a year now. We've seen an average increase of credit increase scores of 43 points. So we're really giving folks an opportunity to improve their credit score for home ownership opportunities. We've also created a pathway of home ownership. So with Thistle Renter, to make it easier to become a Thistle homeowner. So pebble that pathway, as well as other community engagement. Next slide. Lines of business, if you don't know us, we own and manage 574 units, rental units. We have about 234 community land trust homes or quasi-community land trust homes. And we are the Rock USA representative for Colorado. We currently have 12 resident-owned communities. We just added a couple recently, helping mobile home parks purchase themselves for that co-op home ownership opportunity to be owners of their land, and that's been great. Next slide. Thanks, Bill. When it comes to development opportunities, currently we are working on Courtesy Louisville. This is an affordable home ownership opportunity in Louisville, near the intersection of Courtesy Road and South Boulder Road. We purchased this land about 1 year ago, And about a year into the entitlement process, this would be a missing middle income product, permanently affordable for individuals and families at 80 to 100 to possibly 120% AMI. There's also parcel here to partner with Dan and the Habitat folks to add some units below 80% AMI. This would be about 40 homes of affordable home ownership. As you can imagine, a great idea, tough on the gap to fill for the pricing. Fairways Community Rehab, we're currently in the process of starting soon our rehabilitating Fairways. 70 units. We're about 17 years into our tax credit. You can't go back for re-syndication or rehab until year 25 now. So we want to make sure that we're preserving our properties, which is getting harder to wait to year 25. But we are working on about a $2 million exterior renovation there at Fairways, as well as there is land near that property to do a Fairways Phase 2. We are in the final phase of a land banking application that's due on Monday to get $2.6 million to purchase the land nearby to do a Fairways Phase 2. Thank you to Boulder County and the Worthy Cause Grant, where there's some supportive funds that you all are providing. Grateful for that, as well as a potential letter of support for this application. Wink, wink, perhaps on Monday, so that'd be awesome. And then the one idea that we're working on, preserving and protecting our properties as a smaller nonprofit, we're always looking for funding and grateful to the partners on these calls who reach out to us when they have funding. But if we can fit into an affordable homeownership avenue similar to what Habitat, or in partnership with Habitat and the great work that they're doing, what we're looking at doing and presenting to banks right now is to purchase older apartment buildings of 12 to 24 units, rehabbing them, condoizing them, and flipping them to affordable home ownership. And that is something that we're actively presenting to banks, where we could probably get 75% of the dollars we need, but we always need additional funding that we're looking at, and why we're grateful to be on this call, share a few things we have going on, as well as talk about those funding gaps that we all deal with every day. Thank you, and I hope my timer did okay there.
You
Susanna.
did great. Thank you so much, Paul. Bill, if you can just skip to the last slide. I just want to thank everybody for being here today. Our next administrative meeting with the commissioner, very similar to this, will be March 11th. So I'm sorry we didn't get to the RHP dashboard or the homelessness work that's happening, but if we can push you back to March 11th, I think that is the best bet we have. We will post the full slide deck online, as well as the feedback form link. That will all be to follow, but I don't know if you have any last comments, Commissioner, but we are done.
Commissioner Lutzman, you're on mute.
Thank you. Thanks to the speakers and apologies on the time, but thank you. I agree. Next steps, just move to that March 11th meeting. Thanks for finding that date. I do want to have in that March 11th question, just a couple of questions pending for staff. If you could help me with looking at the criteria, so we can have some of that conversation in that next meeting. And then I think wanted to just call out, and Thistle, thank you for the note on the credit reporting. There's a cost to do that. And so just that's super interesting. And I think some of just the shares. And then you talked about the slideshows and where those will be accessible for folks. So be interested in the rehab, the renovation, and one we just heard a little note on. So just to have some more conversation about that would be helpful. And thanks to the other folks at Boulder Mod and Habitat as well, who were sharing their info.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you again for attending. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, y'all too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.